So let us start with new topics. So in this lecture, we will going to cover following topics. The first is sodium fine structure, sodium fine structure. Then second is Zeeman effect, Zeeman effect. Then X-ray, Moseley law, and then fifth one is difference between X-ray and optical spectra. X-ray and optical spectra. Optical spectra. So let us start with the first topic, that is sodium fine structure. So here is the heading, sodium fine structure. So in sodium we know there are 11 electrons. So the configuration is like 281, 281, and number of valence electron is 1 here. So the transition which we get as yellow line, in the sodium we get intense yellow light transition, yellow light transition, and that transition corresponds to 3p state to 3s state, 3p state to 3s state. So without ls coupling there are only two states, one is p state and that is s state. So let us make energy level diagram. So there is a p state, upper state, and there is s state, which is the lower state. Since we are dealing with the sodium atom, so let us write it as p state and s state. But because of the ls coupling, now this p state will split into two states. This will split into two states, and this s will remain into one state. So first here let us see what is the ls coupling scheme in the p state. So p state means L is equal to 1 and S is equal to half. So J is equal to 1 plus minus half. 1 plus minus half means 1 plus half, which is 3 by 2, and then 1 minus half, which is half. So we have two values of J, 3 by 2 and half. And since we are dealing with the atom as a whole, so let us write it as capital J, and here also we can write it as capital S and capital S. So now our terms are, instead of one term, now we have two terms. So here the multiplicity is 2, 1 plus minus half. Because half is small, so multiplicity will be decided by 2 into half plus 1. That is 1 plus 1 means 2. This can also be noted here because there are two terms, it means multiplicity is 2. So now we can designate these two terms as 2p, because L is equal to 1. So 2p and then value of J. Value of J is 3 by 2. And then another term is 2p and then value of J is half. So this p level will now split because of the ls coupling or the spin orbit coupling. This p level splits into two levels, and these two levels are 2p 3 by 2 and it is 2p half, 2p half. Now come to this state, which is s state. So for the s state, L is equal to 0 and S is equal to half. So J will be 0 plus minus half. So 0 plus half means half, and then 0 minus half means again half. So there is only one J value, and the notation will be 1 s half, 1 s half. So let us write here 1 s half. So this is the new transition level. In absence of the LS coupling, there was only one transition like this, but because of the LS coupling, now there is splitting. Therefore, instead of one, now we have two lines. So the one line is this, one transition, and another line is this, another transition. So one transition is from 2p 3 by 2 to 1s half, 1s half, and another transition is from 2p half to 1s half, 1s half. So here the difference between the energy level is large, therefore the frequency will be large, and frequency is large, it means that wavelength will be smaller. So here the wavelength is 5890 angstrom, 5890 angstrom, and here the difference wavelength is 5896 angstrom. So the original sodium line contains fine structure of the doublet lines. This because there are two lines, therefore it is known as doublet, containing 5890 angstrom wavelength and 5896 angstrom. And this is termed as D2 line, and this is termed as D1 line. So this is about the sodium fine structure. Now come to the next page, and we will discuss Zeeman effect. So put the heading Zeeman effect. Zeeman effect. So it is seen that when an atom is placed between the magnetic field or in the magnetic field, then a single spectral line splits into many components. So this effect is known as Zeeman effect. So let us write it here. An atom is when an atom is placed in magnetic field, a single spectral line splits into many components, many components. This is called Zeeman effect. Now the splitting and the number of components depend on the magnitude of the magnetic field. If we apply weak magnetic field, then a number of components are seen. There are a large number of components, and this is known as anomalous Zeeman effect. And if the magnitude is moderate, if the strength of the magnetic field is moderate, then the splitting is only into three components, and this is known as normal Zeeman effect. And if we apply a strong magnetic field, then the effect is known as, it is not the Zeeman effect, but this is Paschen-Back effect. And if we apply electric field instead of magnetic field, then also there is splitting of a single spectral line into many components, and and then this effect is known as Stark effect. This is known as Stark effect. And we are interested only in normal Zeeman effect. So we will discuss only normal Zeeman effect. So now let us put the heading normal Zeeman effect. Normal Zeeman effect. Normal Zeeman effect. So first I will draw an experimental setup. So in experimental setup is very simple. There will be two magnetic poles to produce magnetic field, and in between two magnetic poles an atom is placed to give its optical spectra, and then we can see that optical spectra through eyepiece or through spectrometer. So let us make a diagram here. So there will be two poles, electromagnets. I am going to make electromagnets having two poles. So these are two electromagnets. And then there will be a potential difference between the two. And now let us make pole. So this is the shape of the pole. Two poles here and on this side also. So these are two poles, and in between the two poles an atom is placed. In between the two poles an atom is placed. So let us say this is the atom. And then when we can see the spectral lines through the gap of these poles, that is parallel to magnetic field. Parallel to magnetic field. Parallel to magnetic field. Because the direction of magnetic field will be like this, either from here to here or from here to here, depending on the polarity of the two poles. So we can see parallel to magnetic field, and then we can also see the spectrum perpendicular to magnetic field, perpendicular to magnetic field, magnetic field. If it is parallel to magnetic field, then we see only two lines. Then we see only two lines. And if it is perpendicular to magnetic field, then we see three lines. Means the original line, which was only one spectral line in absence of the magnetic field, that spectral line is now splitting into three lines, or it is seen to split into two lines when we view parallel to magnetic field. So this is the simple experimental setup for the Zeeman effect. Now we will discuss the quantum mechanical theory for Zeeman effect. So let us go to a new page and put the heading quantum mechanical theory. Quantum mechanical theory of normal Zeeman effect. Normal Zeeman effect. Zeeman effect. Now we have angular momentum quantum number, which is Pm, or not quantum number, but it is orbital angular momentum PL, and PL is written as LH cut or LH by 2 pi. PL means it is LH by 2 pi. So it is a vector, PL is a vector, and whose magnitude is LH by 2 pi. Now when we put this PL vector into the magnetic field, and let us say the magnetic field is applied in the z direction, then this PL vector is, there will be interaction between the magnetic field and the PL vector. PL means it is the orbital angular momentum vector. PL vector means, let us write it here, orbital angular momentum. Angular momentum. So this starts to precess. This starts to precess about the magnetic field. And then there will be associated magnetic moment vector also. Magnetic moment vector. Let us write it as orbital magnetic moment. Orbital magnetic moment. Because electron is circulating into an orbit, therefore it is like a current loop. A circulating electron in a closed loop, is like uh, current carrying coil, or simply write it, it is like a coil. It is like a coil. So one side of the coil will act like north pole and other side will act like south pole. And the orbital magnetic momentum associated with this coil is given as I into A. I into A. So mu vector, which is orbital angular magnetic moment, mu is equal to I into A. I means current. So current through this coil or this loop will be charged upon time period E by T, and area of the loop is pi r square. Pi r square. So E into pi r square, and then T means it is 2 pi by omega. 2 pi by omega, where omega is the frequency of the electron. So this pi square and pi get cancelled, and then we have, let us multiply it by m in numerator and denominator, m in numerator and denominator. So this mr square omega, this mr square omega is orbital angular momentum. So it is E by 2m into Pl. Let us write it as mu l. So E by 2m into Pl. So what is the value of mu l by Pl? Its magnitude. This magnitude will be E by 2m. This is the magnitude. And now this is the PL vector. Then the mu l vector will have the opposite direction, because electron is a negatively charged particle. So this is, its direction will be different. So this is the direction of the mu l. This is the mu l vector. So this is termed as Larmor precession. Larmor precession means when magnetic field is applied in z direction, then this PL vector starts to precess about the magnetic field. This is known as Larmor precession, and the frequency of Larmor precession is given as B into E by 2m. B into E by 2m. And B into E by 2m means E by 2m is mu l upon PL. So this is the frequency of the Larmor precession. Now we have to calculate that what amount of the energy is present. B is magnetic field and this is mu l upon PL. Mu l upon PL. So now in next step we will calculate what is the amount of the energy which is added because of this precession or because of this interaction. So the change in energy is delta E, and this energy is equal to the Larmor frequency omega, and then the projection of PL vector in the direction of magnetic field. In the direction of magnetic field. So in direction of magnetic field means it will be, let us say this is the angle theta, so it will be PL cos theta. It is PL cos theta. So delta E is equal to delta L is equal to, sorry, delta E, change in energy. Because of the law of precision, the change in energy is equal to W into PL cos theta. PL means it is LH upon 2 pi into cos theta. And then we have, this is the law of frequency. So let us write it as omega L, law of frequency. And the value is E by 2m. So it is E by 2m into H by 2 pi into L cos theta. L cos theta. Now this L cos theta term is like ml. It is like ml, magnetic orbital angular momentum quantum number. So now we can write this delta E as EH upon 4 pi m, 4 pi m into ml, into ml. This term is like ml. So into ml. So let us consider a single transition corresponding to E dash to E double dash, or E double dash to E dash. Suppose we have two energy levels, one is E double dash, another is E dash. Then what will happen to these energy levels? So delta, let us write it as E dash is equal to E naught dash. E naught means the original energy and E dash is the changed energy. So E naught dash plus delta E, plus delta E dash, plus delta E dash. So this is E naught dash plus delta E dash means it is EH upon 4 pi m into ml dash, into ml dash. And similarly E double dash is equal to E naught double dash plus delta E double dash, which is equal to E naught double dash plus EH upon 4 pi m into ml double dash. So now the transition will be E double dash minus E dash. So this is E naught double dash minus E naught dash and plus EH upon 4 pi m into ml double dash minus ml dash. So this is the frequency, changed frequency. This is changed frequency h nu dash, and this is the original frequency h nu naught. Nu naught is the original frequency. Original frequency means when magnetic field was not applied, then what is the frequency of the spectral line. So that frequency is nu naught, but when we apply the magnetic field, then the frequency will change, and that changed frequency is nu dash, and plus EH upon 4 pi m into delta ml, into delta ml. Now this delta ml has some selection rule. One thing I have forgotten to mention you, the selection rule about the optical spectra. So let us write the selection rule here. Selection rule. So selection rules are selection rules. So these rules are delta J should be equal to 0 and plus minus 1. Then delta L should be equal to plus minus 1. Delta ML should be equal to 0 plus minus 1. So now you can see that delta ML can take only 3 different values. So if delta ML is equal to, if delta ML is equal to 0, if delta ML is equal to 0, then what will happen? H nu dash is equal to H nu naught, means there will be no change in the frequency. So the original frequency, we can get the original frequency, and if delta ML is equal to plus 1, then H nu dash is equal to H nu naught plus EH upon 4 pi m that is increased ml value, increased frequency, and if delta ml is equal to -1, then h nu dash is equal to h nu naught minus eh upon 4 pi m. So these are three different frequencies, h nu dash, three different lines. So one line is the original line. Previously, in absence of the magnetic field, there was only a single line which is at the nu naught, and now in the presence of magnetic field, so let us write here no magnetic field, no magnetic field, and then magnetic field is applied, magnetic field is applied. So when magnetic field is applied, then when magnetic field is applied, then this single line will split into three lines, and these three lines will be, the one will be the original nu naught, and then one will be the increased, that is nu naught plus delta nu, and then another will be nu naught minus delta nu. So these are three different lines, means instead of one spectral line, now we have three different spectral lines. So this is known as the normal Zeeman effect. And in the parallel view, we see only two lines. It is because of the polarization effect. So let us not go into detail of that. But originally you can say that there is a splitting into three lines when magnetic field is applied. So nu naught plus delta nu, and then nu naught minus delta nu. So this is the value. And one correction is here, that because it is nu dash. So nu dash, therefore we can cut HH, and then nu dash is equal to nu naught plus minus. Plus minus, it is E upon 4 pi m. Plus minus E upon 4 pi m. Now with this value, we can also, or with the normal Zeeman effect, we can also calculate the value of E by m. So how one can calculate? Let us see this. So now with this knowledge, let us put another heading, calculation of E by m. Calculation of E by m. E by m. So we have the new value, which is delta nu value, and this delta nu value is EB upon 4 pi m. EB upon 4 pi m. Let us go to the previous page, and I must check that in the previous it is B or not. No, B has been skipped anywhere. So let me add B value. Go to another previous page. Yes, here omega is equal to, omega means it is the, here omega is, 1 minute, there is some correction. So here this omega L, let us write it as omega L. Law of precision or law of frequency. So omega L is B into E by 2m. So I have to make some correction into omega L value, which is B into E by 2m. Yes. This omega M, let us go to one more previous page, this and this, where I have substituted the value of omega L, there will be correction. Yes, here it is the value of omega L. So do some correction here. Omega L means it is, there will be B also. LH by E by 2m, I have substituted only E by 2m, there will be B also. So make here correction, B into E by 2m. So it is B into E by 2m, and therefore everywhere we will have a magnetic field also. Magnetic field also. So everywhere write the magnetic field also, B. And here also there will be B, magnetic field, because we are applying the magnetic field, so we cannot leave the magnetic field. So it is EB. And now go to this. So yes. So now this is the term that delta nu is equal to EB upon 4 pi m. And then nu is equal to C by lambda. So delta nu is equal to minus C by lambda square into delta lambda. So let us substitute this value. So here it will be minus C upon lambda square into delta lambda is equal to EB upon 4 pi m. EB upon 4 pi m. So delta E by m. E by m will be equal to, it will be E by m will be 4 pi C upon b lambda square. 4 pi c b lambda square with a negative sign. I think this is the complete equation. Let me check this. E by m is equal to 4 pi c b by lambda square. Yes, this is right expression. So this is the expression for calculating E by m. For calculating E by m. So experimentally we can measure the delta. Of course there will be delta lambda. So experimentally we can measure the value of delta lambda experimentally, and then we know the value of lambda. It is known, and since we are applying magnetic field, therefore magnetic field also known. So by substituting these values we can calculate the value of E by m using Zeeman effect experiment. So this is about all. This is all about the Zeeman effect. Now come to the next page, that is the X-ray. Come to the next page and put the heading X-ray. X-ray. So X-ray is basically it is electromagnetic radiation. Electromagnetic radiation. Radiation of large frequency. Of large frequency. Large frequency. So the quanta will be photon. So the quanta will be photon. For all the electromagnetic radiation, the quanta of energy is photon. Now let us recall the electromagnetic radiation first. So there is a range of the electromagnetic radiation, electromagnetic rays. So on the middle there is a visible light. This is the visible light. Then we have infrared, and then we have microwave, and then we have radio wave. So in this direction wavelength is increasing, and in opposite direction frequency is increasing. So after visible range we have ultraviolet, and then we have X-ray. We have X-ray, and then we have gamma ray. Gamma ray. So this is the complete spectrum of the electromagnetic rays, and all these are the quanta of all these electromagnetic rays or radiation is known as photon, and these are transverse wave. Transverse wave. Transverse wave. So the nature of X-ray is similar to the nature of the light. Light means the visible light. The difference lies only in the frequency, because the frequency of the X-ray is very large, therefore its wavelength is small, and frequency is large, therefore the energy which is expressed as h into nu, so this energy is also very large because frequency is large, therefore it is highly penetrating. Larger be the energy or larger be the frequency of the photon or electromagnetic rays, it has the effect of penetration, effect of large penetration or high penetration into any body, whereas the visible light has no penetrating effect, but these high frequency radiations have penetrating effect, therefore these are harmful for us, not for only us but for other animals and plants also. This is very harmful because they penetrate inside our body. So you might have heard that X-rays are harmful, and therefore one should not go frequently for the X-ray X-ray imaging, uh, whereas the infrared is not harmful, and the and microwave is not harmful, radio wave is not harmful. They are in our surrounding, but X-rays is very harmful. So here there is a list of various properties of X-rays, and in this list just I am studying all these, reading all these, because there is nothing to explain in these properties. These are simple properties and you can understand easily. So X-rays are not deflected by electric and magnetic field, which shows that they do not consist of charged particles. They are electromagnetic radiations of very short wavelength, 1 angstrom. Because the frequency is very large, therefore wavelength is small. Wavelength is small, 1 angstrom, and because of this reason, these X-rays can be used for the crystal structure determination. This you have already studied in your previous semester in crystallography. They affect photographic plate like light, but the effect is much more intense than light. They travel in straight lines with the velocity of light, which is 3 into 10 to the power 8 meter per second. They produce fluorescence in several materials like barium, platinum cyanide, zinc sulfide, and cadmium tungsten. X-rays ionize the gas through which they pass. Because it has high energy, therefore it can ionize the gas. X-rays are highly penetrating and can pass through many solids. For example, wood, flesh, etc., which are opaque to ordinary light. They produce photoelectric effect and thus exhibit corpuscular nature also. They show interference, diffraction, and polarization similar to light rays. So X-rays have also dual nature, that is wave-like nature and also the particle-like nature. Now come to the new page and put the heading production of X-ray. Put the heading production of X-ray. Production of X-ray. Production of X-rays. So these X-rays are produced when high velocity electrons are incident on any target. Then because of the loss in their kinetic energy, the difference of the energy is emitted like X-rays. So let us write it here. When high velocity electrons are incident on the target, their energy, kinetic energy is lost, and the difference of the energy is emitted in form of X-rays. Now these X-rays are the device which produces X-rays is known as X-ray tube. The device is known as X-ray tube. So they are of two varieties. The first is continuous X-ray. Continuous X-rays. Continuous X-rays means we will get a range of wavelength. Having a cutoff or minimum wavelength. So in this spectrum, the range of wavelength is continuous. Means we will have a wavelength lambda, then let us say 1 angstrom, then 1.1 angstrom, 1.2 angstrom, and so on up to certain range. And then there is another type which is characteristic X-rays. So these characteristics X-rays means a definite wavelength. Definite wavelength is observed or produced depending on the target element, depending on the target element. If we replace the given target element with another target element, then these characteristic wavelength will change, and therefore it is known as characteristic because they are characteristics of the element used as a target. Whereas in continuous X-ray spectrum, it doesn't depend on the target. So let us write it here. It does not depend on target. It does not depend on target. If we change the target, then also we will get the similar type of the continuous X-rays having the same range of the wavelength. But it depends on uh, potential difference applied difference applied in X-ray tube. So continuous X-rays means they have a range of wavelength having a cutoff minimum wavelength, and it doesn't depend on the target material, but it depends on potential difference applied in X-ray tube. Characteristic X-rays means they have the different wavelength which is the characteristic property of the element of target. Therefore, it depends on the target used, but it doesn't depend on the potential difference. It does not depend on the potential difference. Does not on depend on potential difference. Now let us see that why there is a minimum cutoff value. So if in the if the applied potential difference is equal to V in the X-ray tube, then the kinetic energy of electron is E into V. Kinetic energy of electron is E into V. So the maximum frequency of the X-ray which can be produced by this voltage will be h nu, which is equal to E into V. So this nu is the maximum value. So we can define the maximum frequency, but we cannot define the minimum frequency because there may be the loss of in a small fraction. Therefore, there will be a range of the frequency, but nu maximum is defined when the electron will lose all its energy and it will get stopped. Means the kinetic energy will become zero. So all the kinetic energy has lost all its kinetic energy. So EV is equal to h nu maximum, and because nu maximum is defined, therefore lambda minimum is defined. So let us write it as nu hc upon lambda minimum, and that is equal to E into V, and therefore lambda minimum is equal to lambda minimum or the cutoff lambda is equal to hc upon EB. So here HCE, these are constant term, so these constants are 12.414 and then divided by the voltage. So this is the expression for the minimum value of lambda. So in the continuous X-ray spectrum, a cutoff lambda is seen. for all the voltage, for all the voltage. So now put the heading continuous X-ray spectrum, continuous X-ray spectrum, X-ray spectrum. And now let us plot a graph. Let us plot a graph of the continuous X-ray spectrum. So here it is lambda and here it is intensity. Intensity. So the graph is like this. And let us say this is at 50 kilovolt, then this graph is at 40 kilovolt, then it is at 30 kilovolt, and this is at 20 kilovolt. So these are the value or the potential difference applied in the X-ray tube. So what we see here, this is the maximum value of lambda. These are the maximum value of the this is the value of lambda for which intensity is maximum, and this is the cutoff value. This is cutoff value, cutoff value, cutoff value for the lambda. So what we can draw by observing this graph. So the first point is that every curve has a cutoff value of lambda, a cutoff value of lambda, cutoff value of lambda. Then this lambda minimum decreases with applied potential, applied potential. This we have already seen because we had the formula that lambda minimum is equal to it was 12.414 divided by V. So using this formula one can see that lambda minimum is inversely proportional to potential difference. So if potential difference is increased, then the value of lambda minimum will decrease. Then third point is that the intensity increases with lambda attains a maximum value, and again it decreases, again it decreases. The lambda corresponding to maximum intensity decreases with increasing potential, increasing potential. And the last one is that the intensity is higher for larger value of potential difference. So let us see the first point, that every curve has a cutoff value. So here we can see that every curve has cutoff value of lambda, and this is also clear from this formula. Then lambda minimum decreases with applied potential, or with increase in applied potential. So this is also obvious from the formula. The intensity increases with lambda. For a definite potential, the intensity increases, then it attains a maximum value, and again it decreases. So this nature is for all the value of potential difference. Then the lambda corresponding to maximum intensity means this point. So as we increase the potential difference, then this lambda value for which intensity is maximum, that lambda value also decreases. And then if we increase the potential, then intensity will increase. So here the intensity is less, then little bit higher, then higher, and this is the maximum intensity for the maximum potential difference. So these are the continuous X-ray spectra. Now come to the next topic, which is the characteristic X-ray spectrum. So put the heading characteristic X-ray spectrum. Now we have atom in which there is a nucleus at the center, and then electrons are orbiting around the nucleus at definite energy levels. Definite energy levels which are termed as KLMN shells. So this is KLMN. These are shells of the, these are orbits of the electron inside the atom. Now when high velocity electrons come, a cathode ray, electrons means the cathode ray, and it knocks an electron. It knocks an electron from the cation. So this electron is ejected. This electron is ejected from the cation, and then there is vacancy in the cation. So to fill up this vacancy, to fill up this vacancy, the electron from L shell jumps into the cation, or from the M shell can jump into the cation. So let us write a point. When high velocity electrons approach electrons approach the nucleus in the atom, it may knock out the electron from cation. So a vacancy is created. In the cation. To fill this vacancy, an electron from L or M shell may jump into the cation. In this process, the difference of the energy, between two levels, is emitted like X-rays. So this is the simple theory for the characteristic X-ray. If K shell electron is knocked out, then we have K series of X-ray, and if L shell electron is knocked out, then we will have L series X-ray, and if M shell electron is knocked out, then we have M series X-ray. And here also, when there is transition from L to K, then this will be alpha, and if it is M to K, then it will be beta. And then if we also consider the subshells at at corresponding to L, then we will have the alpha 1, alpha 2 also, but let us don't go into that detail. So on the same analogy of the optical spectra, we say it as alpha beta. So all this about the characteristic X-ray spectra, and then we can also write the equation or the frequency using the previous equations of the last lecture or the previous lecture. So there we had the expression that h nu is equal to it is r h c z square into 1 upon n1 square minus 1 upon n2 square. So this was the formula for the emission of any radiation, and here again we can use the same formula for the X-ray also. So these are the two terms. So this n1 is for the k value, and this may be for the L, and this may be for the M. And if we write it for the k series, then it will be h nu is equal to r h c into z square 1 upon 1 square minus 1 upon 2 square, 1 upon 2 square. And let us omit this h value, then this nu will become rc into z square into 1 upon 1 square minus 1 upon 2 square. In general, we can write it as n1 and n2. Let us write it as n1 and n2 square in general. So now this z, what we see here, we see that nu is now proportional to, for a given series, this nu is proportional to z square, because all these are constant term. If we choose a particular series, let us say the k series, then n1 and n2 have fixed value. So this nu is proportional to, for a given spectral line, this nu is proportional to z square. So this is known as Moseley law. Moseley law. Then there is some correction also, because when Z means it is the atomic number or the number of protons inside the nucleus. But as we go outside the nucleus, or if we go to the L shell, then there is also some electrons of the K shell around the nucleus. So the effective Z will be less than the actual Z, and that is known as the screening effect. So nu is generally written as proportional to Z minus B whole square, and B is the screening factor. Screening factor. And for different shell, this has different value. For K shell, B is equal to 1. So nu is proportional to Z minus 1 whole square. So this is Moseley law, that nu is proportional to Z minus B square. And this law has very much importance. This law has very much importance. So put the heading importance of Moseley law. Moseley law. So what are the importance? That where Z is the atomic number of target. So please know that Z means it is the atomic number of target. And initially I said that characteristic X-rays depend on the element used as target. So this X frequency is proportional to Z square. This frequency is proportional to Z square for a given line, a spectral line. So the importance is that atomic number is more accurate presentation rather than atomic weight. So the importance is that atomic number is more characteristic property in comparison to atomic weight. So initially in the periodic table, Mendeleev has kept all the elements in the increasing order of the atomic weight, but after the Moseley law, it was suggested that atomic number is more characteristic value. Therefore, he changed the periodic table and then it was put in form of the or in increasing order of the atomic number, and because of this some problem which was arise which was in the periodic table, so that problem was solved using the Moseley law. So this is the importance of the Moseley law in periodic table also. Now come to the last topic, and then last topic is yes, it is the comparison of the X-ray spectra and optical spectra. Comparison of X-ray spectra and optical spectra. So optical spectra is formed when a valence electron jumps from higher energy level to lower energy level, or it goes from lower energy level to higher energy level. But X-ray spectra is formed when K shell electron is knocked out and then electrons from the M shell or L shell jumps in, to fill the vacancy of the K shell. So there is much difference between the two. So let us read it. X-ray spectra arise from electron transitions among the inner complete shells of very firmly bound electrons. Because K shell is very firmly bound, therefore it knocks out the K shell electron, which is bound to the nucleus very tightly. Whereas optical spectra arise from transitions of the outermost electrons of the atom. Outermost electrons means it is the valence electron. Then the X-ray spectra vary smoothly from element to element because nu is proportional to Z square. Therefore, there is variation, a smooth variation. But optical spectra show periodic changes from element to element. Optical spectra, the nature of optical spectra depends on the number of valence electron. So we can see the similar spectra for the sodium and then for potassium, because both have the same one number of the valence electron. So there is the periodic changes, but here it is the smooth change. X-ray spectra arise as a result of the complete removal of an electron from an inner shell of the atom. So here high velocity electrons or cathode rays knock out the electron completely from the atom. But in the optical spectra, the electrons from an outer shell is merely raised to a higher level and not completely removed. So this is the difference. Then X-ray emission spectra consisting of discrete lines are entirely different from the X-ray absorption spectra consisting of continuous regions bounded by sharp edges. Whereas the optical emission spectra are identical to the optical absorption spectra. So let us see the last point. In the optical spectra, if electron jumps from higher energy to lower energy, then there will be the emission of the photon or the radiation, and if some radiation is given, then electron may absorb this radiation and it may go from lower energy level to higher energy level. So this is the emission spectra, this is the emission spectra, and this is the absorption spectra. Absorption spectra, and both are similar with each other. We will get the discrete lines, but here we understand the emission, which I have already discussed. In case of absorption, if some small amount of energy is given, then that will be absorbed by the free electron inside the atom, and then when this energy will be close to the energy of some bound orbital, that is K shell, then there will be a sharp edge. So all the frequencies or all the wavelengths of the energy will be absorbed in the absorption, but there will be sharp edge when it is close to the K shell or when it is close to the L shell or M shell energy. Whereas in this case, this energy difference remains same in the emission as well in absorption. So these are the few points for the difference or for comparing X-ray spectra and optical spectra. So in this way we have completed all the topics which are related to this unit. So let us stop here.